Hello, BookTube. Well, it's the beginning of December, and that means that on BookTube, people are making their December TBR videos left, right, and center. And as those of you who've been watching this channel will know, I don't make TBR videos because the size of my TBR for any given month is too big to fit in a video, and you know, oftentimes too obscure to be of any interest in a video. So what I do instead is a TBR BY, a to be read by you, where I make 10 recommendations for books that are either out in bookstores now for the month of December or are coming out soon, that I can wholeheartedly recommend to you, that I think are worth your time if the subject is of interest to you. And from time immemorial in the publishing world, the characterization of December is a doldrum month. That its publishers know that their books are going to be coming out at a time when people are traveling and when they've already made all of their gift buying purchases or whatever, and that then the new year is going to start. That review journals, newspapers, magazines, online sites are all thinking about end of the year lists. They're thinking about gift books. They're thinking about the new year. They're making plans well in advance. So I've always railed against the idea that December is a wasteland, but there is a tiny grain of truth to it. So I've gone a little bit further afield with some of these recommendations, just because I don't want you to miss anything, just in case you're shopping for books for yourself in the otherwise empty month of December. And I've got them on the trusty iPad here, but it's very late at night, and I've been experimenting with how to hold the iPad so that you can actually see the pictures. And there's a tiny little angle that I can use that's kind of visible, so we're going to do that. And the first book that I want to recommend, it's big, it's expensive, and it's talk about abstruse, but it's something we've seen on this channel before, and it has lots of merit. And that is this, Chimpanzees and Human Evolution. It's an anthology. See that? If I hold it just right, you can see it. It's an anthology of essays summarizing the latest research on primatology, and because it's an anthology, it's of course uneven, but some of those essays are really good. And when you read the book as a book, straight from beginning to end, the way I did, you come away with one impression more than anything else, which is that there is almost no difference between chimpanzees and humans. It's eye-opening. So it's a bit of a reach. You know, it's not anything you're going to see in your bookstore. You're going to have to order it, but I do recommend it. It is a very good anthology if it strikes your fancy. And the next one is a paperback, and I don't know why. I don't know why this was published as a paperback original in America. It's Ramses the Damned and the Passion of Cleopatra by Anne Rice and her son Christopher Rice. And it's a continuation of the adventures of the character Ramses the Great, who in Anne Rice's novel The Mummy takes a magic potion in ancient Egypt that keeps him not only immortal but in suspended animation, and he comes awake in the Edwardian era when an Egyptologist has uncovered his tomb, and becomes, you know, a super hottie in the modern world. And this is a continuation of his adventures, and it turns out, of course, that you don't mention Egypt without lugging Cleopatra in, so she shows up, and it turns out she's immortal too. I realize it's a sequel to a book that's fairly old, but it's Anne Rice, who's a New York Times bestselling author, and Christopher Rice, who's a New York Times bestselling author. I don't understand why this didn't come out as a hardcover with a bit of fanfare, but I don't object. I'm glad that it's a paperback. It's all the more accessible to people. The one question that you might have about this is, do you need to read The Mummy first? And in answer to that, my answer is yes and no. Yes, you have to read The Mummy first because The Mummy's a humdinger of a book. But no, you don't have to read The Mummy to understand this book and like it. Anne Rice is a past master of catching you up with her material without forcing you to read any other books. So I do recommend it. She writes, I guess I should be saying, they write such a propulsive narrative line. It's just, you just keep turning the pages. Pure candy. And speaking of pure candy, you know perfectly well that a list like this, a TBR BY of mine, is going to have a Regency romance on it, and I have one this time around. It's To the Duke with Love by the great Amelia Gray. It's the latest in the Rakes of St. James series of these utter reprobate men who have to renovate their reputations on the marriage mart. And this one is slightly different in that the main character wants to live down his reputation as one of the Rakes of St. James, so that he can successfully marry off his sister. But the person on whom he has his eyes set for her, that person's household contains someone else that he starts to fall in love with himself, and so it's I liked it most of all. It's my favorite of the series so far. And if you haven't yet made the acquaintance of Amelia Gray as a romance author, and you read romance novels, then you really need to correct that, because she's wonderful. Then the next one was downright odd. Even I was expecting it to be odd, and it was even odder than I expected. It's this. Look at the cover on this. It's S. That's packed meat, and the title and author is on the label up at the top. Very nice design. This is S by Koji Suzuki, who's the author of Ring, the famous book that was made into a movie on both sides of the Atlantic. It was made into 2 movies, and then it was very successful and had a bunch of sequels. This is a novel set in that same imaginative world, and I don't know. After I think it was the 4th book, the one right before this one, I kind of thought that the idea was played out, that the well was dry. But and I do still think that the supernatural element in the book is kind of played out. But I think the author's getting better and better at crafting characters, as I've often seen to be the case. People who write, talented writers who write horror, often grow out of the genre. They often start to write books where you get the impression that they would be perfectly entertaining to read with no horror elements at all. There are, of course, exceptions. Some horror authors never, in fact, learn their craft. But some of them do. And this one, one of the main characters in this is a young man who works at a CGI studio, and he's asked to look into a subterranean viral video online that purports to show a suicide, and the psychological chamber of horrors that opens up after that, doorway by doorway, really doesn't need a supernatural component. I mean, the supernatural component is handled well in the book, but it really doesn't need it. This is very nearly a novel about internet rabbit holes, which would have been great. The book's really good anyway. It's just you have to know that it does add those elements. So if you're not interested in genre fiction, you probably find parts of this annoying. I loved it. And then last time we did a TBR BY, you might remember this book, the Landmark Julius Caesar, the latest in the Landmark series, where you get these oversized hardcovers of classical authors. You get the translation of the work, you get a ton of footnotes and annotations, and you also get a lavish amount of maps, so that for Herodotus or Thucydides, you can see what they're talking about, where these people are and where they're going. And that concept works so well in the writings of Julius Caesar. And this book is fantastic. It's even better than... I've been studying it in order to review it, and it has hidden depths. It is amazingly good. By far the best volume in the series, and also, no pun intended, a landmark volume on the study of Julius Caesar. That was last time. This time, Julius Caesar comes up again. I wanted to make a little more obscure recommendation, just in case you're interested. If you're interested in the classical world and in Julius Caesar, then you don't want to miss the Landmark Julius Caesar, but you also don't want to miss this. There's a series of paperbacks called the Cambridge Companion Series. It's immense now. They've done it. They're an anthology of essays around a subject. And their newest one in December is the Cambridge Companion to the Writings of Julius Caesar. And it's amazingly good. There's barely a weak spot in it. So I know that I'm a little bit predisposed to read it with interest because I'm studying Julius Caesar. But if you're interested in classical world and classical authors and whatnot, you should have both. This is not a Cambridge Companion volume to miss. But then if we go away from Julius Caesar, the next one is a book I think I've recommended on this channel before. I don't think I've recommended it in a TBR BY, but I want to recommend it again because although it's a little bit uneven, it really is good. And it's this, Leaving the Wild, by Gavin Ehringer. And it's about the domestication of cows, pigs, cats, and dogs. And it's a little uneven, and by that you could probably see what I mean coming. The part on dogs is a little weak. Could have been researched a great deal better. And there's, that reflects the unevenness of this quartet. It's not really accurate to say, to talk about how mankind domesticated cats, horses, dogs, and pigs, or cattle rather. It's more accurate to say how mankind and dogs domesticated those other animals, because mankind has never been without dogs. So the story of one of these tempting an animal out from the wild is drastically different from the story of the other three, but still, it's a fascinating study. These are our servant animals. They are, in some cases, our ally animals. And when that list is not very long. And this author makes a lot of really great insights. So if you're interested in animals, then I think this is the best book in December. And then the next one, I've recommended it elsewhere. I've recommended it in print. I think I've probably sung its praises on this channel, but I want to give it one more try. There's a couple of graphic novels on this list, but this is such a gem. It's such a gem. It is such a beautiful product, in addition to being great reading, that I wanted to recommend it one more time. This is it's a box set of it's oversized. It's a box set slipcase of the first 3 volumes of Hal Foster's Prince Valiant. The Sunday comic, only done with remastered artwork, recolored artwork on these huge creamy white pages, so that you get the best possible experience of paging through these things and seeing the adventures of this character as they were starting out. And they're glorious. It's a glorious endeavor. I can't sing its praises high enough, so I thought I'd mention it one more time. I don't really know who the audience for it would be. Even comic book fans won't know anything about Prince Valiant. I guess, if you had an older person who remembers Sunday comics, then maybe. But or if you're interested in Arthurian fantasy, because that's what this is. It's just delightful to read. Along those lines, I wanted to mention another graphic novel. It's big. I think it's hardcover, and it is so good. It's an omnibus of the Captain America years written by Mark Waid, and with artists the Kubert brothers, and Ron Garney, I think, is one of the artists. Ron Garney does some of the best work of his career in these issues, and it is to make a long story short, the backstory in the Marvel universe immediately prior to the launch of this title made it possible for Mark Waid to basically start from scratch with Captain America and just tell adventure stories. And he does a great job. Oh, these issues are so good. They are, in my opinion, the finest understanding of the character of Captain America that has ever been done. And you might think that's not hard, but getting the character of Captain America right on the page is every bit as hard as getting the character of Superman right on the page. And the reason is the same, because on the surface they both look as simple as could be, almost mythological. So getting them right as human, relatable characters is tough to do. And Mark Waid does a great job from the very first page of the very first issue all the way through the run. So I can't recommend it enough. I've been waiting for this to come out in a collection, because I love those issues. And unfortunately, if you love your paperback, your little stapled comic book issues, they're going to fall apart. Mine are falling apart. So I was very happy to have this. So if you're a comic book fan, if you have a comic book fan on your list, it's worth getting. The next one is Prehistory by a master of prehistory. Also an oversized hardcover, and heavily illustrated, beautifully illustrated, but so good. This is Barry Cunliffe, and his latest book is On the Ocean, which is subtitled The Mediterranean and the Atlantic from Prehistory to AD 1500. And he has a fascination with the interaction of the ocean and human society. And all of his books more or less reflect on that. And this one, On the Ocean, is incredibly good. All of his books are. I don't know why he doesn't get more attention. But you can make a shelf of his oversized, beautifully illustrated hardcovers. And this is just the latest one. You don't need to read any of the others, but if you're interested in deep history being really engagingly narrated, this is very much a book to have. And then we'll do the last one. The last one is close to my heart. It is a classic that has been reissued for its 25th anniversary. I can't believe it's been 25 years. It's by Jez Alborough, and it's Where's My Teddy? The story of a little boy who has lost his teddy bear and is wandering in the woods when he finds a teddy bear, but the teddy bear he finds is as big as a house, and he's not sure why. What happened to my teddy bear? Why is he so big? And what, or if it's not my teddy bear, what's it doing here? But it turns out that he's not the only one who's lost a teddy bear. A gigantic bear has also lost a teddy bear, and those of you who haven't read Where's My Teddy, you have such a treat in store for you when it ends. The ending of it is so wonderful. Those of you who have will know what I'm talking about, but this is a classic kids book. Absolutely classic. And to have it reissued, that's just wonderful. So whether it's for a kid on your list or whether you're just going to say that, but it's for you, you could make your way to the kids section of your bookstore and find this, because it's well worth your time. And then we're gonna end on that. Those were 10 or so, 10 plus Julius Caesar of December 2017 TBR BY of books that I would recommend to you if we were walking around a bookstore together. And I'll be back with more videos once the sun is up. Thank you, BookTube.